Hello. In today's demonstration, we're going to be discussing how to hook up a patient's ICP monitor or bolt, Codman microprocessing unit, ICP monitor, up to your ProPack. So in order to do that, you're going to need three pieces of equipment. The first one is going to be your Codman Express unit. The other thing you're going to need is your Codman interface cable, which basically connects from this Codman unit down to your ProPack, so you get an ICP number, as well as a microprocessor cable that connects from the Codman bolt from your patient to the Codman Express unit. So the first thing to note on these cables is that they have different ends. So just remember that square things go into square holes, round things go into round holes. And the other thing you're going to also notice on the Codman itself that's in the patient, a lot of times they will have a number on here, and this is a reference number that is determined by the neurosurgeon prior to being placed actually in the patient. So it's either written on the unit itself, or it could be documented somewhere else in the chart. Always talk to your ICU nurse when you're picking up your patient so you know that number to plug into your unit. So first thing, hook up your first cable. And then again, small round cable to small round cable. And you'll notice on here that there is the words Millar and Codman and lines that line up, and they just get pushed together. You will not get any tactile sensation that it's together, or visual really confirmation. It looks like it's not together, but that is actually securely put together. You're going to, at this point, being that I'm up here, I go ahead and put in this number, which is 305 on our example. So there's a little lock here on the bottom. You're going to flip that to the unlock position. That way you can freely turn your numbers. You'll dial in 305. After you get that dialed in, you go ahead and lock it back in place. One caution here at this point is that if you still have it locked, you can still turn this dial, and if the unit has been not treated adequately, maybe banged around a little bit, or been in the theater for about 10 years like the ones out there have right now, this lock can get loose, and so these numbers can move, which will change your ICP reading. So this number, you got to make sure that that is a nice secure lock on there. The next step is basically getting from your Codman Express unit down to your ProPack, so you can actually get a ICP number. And you'll notice on here it's just a monitor connection on the top. And you can go ahead and secure that as well in place. And on the other end of this cable, you'll notice that it's just a standard pressure connection going into your ProPack. And by convention, what we do here at CSTARS Cincinnati is P2 is always your ICP monitor. So at this point, you want to go ahead and turn on your ProPack, and while we're doing that, we're also going to check our battery level. So what we're going to do is unplug our ProPack so we get an accurate reading. Note here it says battery 9.2 volts. And so to have an adequate charge for our purposes here, it is basically the volts greater than 7.8. That'll give you about an hour and a half of operation time, as well as make sure you have all your functionality of the ProPack. So now that we have it all hooked up, we have our cable from our patient to the Codman Express, we put in our number, and we've also got our cable going from the Codman Express unit down to our ProPack. So we want to go ahead and zero it, because as you'll notice here it says P2 is not zeroed. So up here on the Codman Express unit, you will notice that it has a little lever here that has three settings. You have 0 or standby, you have 100 millimeters mercury, and a transducer position. So the first thing we have to do is go ahead and zero it, and it's just an electronic zero, which is right here, so it's on 0. So we're going to go ahead and zero it. Along here on the bottom, you'll notice it says 0 P2, which is where we put our pressure monitor. We'll go ahead and zero that, and now that it says zeroed. So to ensure that this unit is functioning correctly, we're going to go ahead and turn it to 100. give it a second to settle out, and we should note that on this pressure display, it's just a generic pressure. The machine does not know that we have an ICP hooked up yet at this point. So you'll see three numbers, 100, 100, and 100, the small, so you have a systolic, diastolic, and a mean, or a map. And the one that we're going to be reading as our ICP is actually the small one in parentheses, which is the map. So in order to make that bigger, what we're going to do is go ahead and increase that size by changing the label, and it also puts a nice label on there stating that what we're actually monitoring. So, and I'll just start from the main screen. So we go to setup, and go to setup, actually go to main screen, go to invasive pressures, then go to, this is where you got the zeros again, so if you go to the next screen, that's where you can start labeling it and putting it, doing different formats and that sort of thing. So what we're going to do is go ahead and label P2. So you push it once, it goes to arterial line, push it again, it goes to PA pressures, one more time it goes to CBP, and then one additional time to get your ICP. So what that did is it labels this pressure as ICP, and also took that small map number of 100 and made it large so you can see it and it's more obvious. So then at this point what you want to do is make sure that this 100 matches up to that 100. So there is a small variability that can be appropriate. It's plus or minus 2. So if it's 100 plus or minus 2, it is still adequately functioning. If it's outside that range, something is wrong with the unit or the cable, so go ahead and just replace those. So now that we've done that, then the last step then is basically move this little switch over to transduce and go ahead and measure your ICP. And as you can see, ICP in this patient currently is 9.